Ephraim Rimel, thank you very much for joining me today on the Orthodox Conundrum podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
You have a story of both tragedy and inspiration. I'm not sure how else to describe it except that way. And I really have very little to ask. I just want to be someone who listens. I think that I need to hear, and my listeners need to hear your story, what happened to you, and what happened afterwards as well. So let's begin the way you would like to begin. Let me put it like that. Can you please tell us your
Okay,
story?
sure. So my name is Ephraim Rimel. I was actually born in Chicago. My parents made Aliyah in 1989 when I was 5. Um, and we were living a relatively normal, regular life, nothing too exciting. We went on shlichut through Torah Mitzion, actually back to Chicago,
Can I
for
ask who,
four
who is
years.
we?
I'll get to that in 1 second. From 2010 to 2014, we was my wife Tzipi and I, and at the time we had 2 children that went with us on Shlichut, Itai and Leah. In Chicago, Amichai joined us, and once we returned, Hariel was born, and then ultimately Noam was born in November 2019. And again, life was relatively regular, nothing too exciting. To be once we arrived, was an English teacher. I was a Kala teacher. I was running the Yerushalayim region of the Ezra Youth Movement,
Mhm.
and again, everything was relatively normal. On the November 30th, 2019, cousins of mine from Teaneck came to visit um, in Israel for the weekend. We went out with them on Saturday. That was Saturday. We went to visit with them Saturday night. We went out to a restaurant. The children were by my aunt's house. They ate pizza, watched a movie. Regular Saturday night. And towards midnight, we came back to my aunt's apartment. She lives in Yerushalayim. Itai already fell asleep on the couch. I remember picking him up, putting him into the car, and started to drive home. And the car was Tzipi and me. Itai, who was 12 that day, his birthday was Gimel Kislev, which was already Motzei Shabbat Sunday. And Noam, our baby, was 3 weeks old. Started driving. We got onto the Begin Highway in Yerushalayim going north towards Modi'in. The Begin Highway connects into the 443 highway. And when we got to the Givat Zev junction, um, we stood at the red light, and that is the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember is that when I wake up in Shaarei Tzedek Hospital 2 weeks later. When I wake up, obviously I don't know it's 2 weeks yet, and it takes me time to figure out where I am and what's going on. And the rumor that I woke up spread. One of the doctors comes into the room and says, "Ephraim, do you know who I am?" I said, "No. Who are you?" He said, "I'm Dr. Schwartz." I said, "Nice to meet you, Ephraim Rimel." He said, "Yeah, I know who you are. Do you know why you're here?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, there was a car accident. How do you feel?" I was on enough drugs at the time to make sure I was feeling great. So I said, "Everything's okay with me." He asked me if I remembered something from the accident. I said, "No." He didn't want to bother me too much. So, okay, I'll get back to you later. And then the next morning, he returned to the room. I still did not remember anything from that car accident. And then he told me what happened. He told me that the car accident was a little severe, as he put it. He described surgeries I went. I went on my back, on my stomach, and basically said that he doesn't think I'll be able to walk again. Uh, Before I had time to really understand what that meant, he told me that Itai is in critical condition and fighting for his life. And before I had time to ask anything about that, he said that Tzipi and Noam were killed on site. And nothing really prepares you in life to hear the worst news you could possibly get. You can't ever imagine hearing that, and you can't ever be prepared hearing something like that. The first question I was able to ask was, was is the car accident my fault? And he said no. I said, oh, come on. This isn't the time to feel bad for me. Tell me what happened. Then he told me that there's a police report, there are cameras. I stood at the red light, and a driver hit me in the back, going 110 miles per hour, 172, 174 kilometers per hour. Said, there's nothing you could have done. It's really not your fault. At that point, I asked, wait a second, where are the other children? Because we left 3 children at home. And at that point, my in-laws moved in to my house to take care of the kids. My parents basically moved to Shari Tzedek to take care of me and Itai, and family was really spread thin. And then he asked me one more question. So we have to make a decision about Itai. I said, okay, what's the story? He described Itai's situation at the time. His left leg was amputated already beneath the knee. He went through severe surgeries, very complicated ones of his stomach and his head and his skull, all kinds of things. And the debate was if to perform another surgery or not. I said, I didn't go to pre-med. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're the doctor. Do whatever you understand. And he ever said it, as they say. And he said, this isn't a doctor's decision. This is a parent decision. Itai was described as a which literally means a sick person who is leaning towards death, which isn't only a medical term, it's also a halachic term.
Mhm.
When someone is severely injured and they obviously want to do things that will make the situation better, it's only making things worse. And sometimes we understand that we want to do things that make things better, but at the end of the day, the outcome sometimes isn't what we wished for. And while I was sleeping, as I call it, the biggest people couldn't understand these situations, both in the medical term and in the halachic term, decided not to perform the surgery, that the situation was too delicate. And when I wake up, we have to make the decision again, and then we decide to go forward with the surgery. And at that point, I'm trying to think to myself, what am I supposed to focus on? What am I supposed to deal with? What am I supposed to deal with first? My rehab, children's situation, Itai situation, or the loss of Tzipi and Noah.
Right.
And I remember then a sentence that I heard from Rav Amital, Zichrono Livracha, the Rosh Hashiva in Gush. He had a saying, I'll say it in Hebrew first, She'ela tova adifa mitshuva lo tova. A good question is better than a not good answer. And the first time I heard him say that, I thought he was talking about the question he asked in Shir. He asked a question in Shir. One of the guys gave an answer that wasn't good enough in his mind, and he thought, what, we're better off with my question than your not good answer. Then, and the Sarah B'Tevet, Rav Amital, as a Holocaust survivor, always gave a very meaningful talk, and he said the same thing about the Shoah. He said that during the time of the founding of the State of Israel, the saying was that the founding of the State of Israel is the answer to the Holocaust. And he said he doesn't accept that answer, not because he wasn't a Zionist or he didn't believe in the miracle of the founding of the State of Israel, but 6 million. The question is better than the answer. For the first time in my life, I understood what that really meant, because there's no answer to why or what I'm supposed to do with this or how I'm supposed to continue. And I don't think I'm a righteous person that I'm being giving any sayon or a wicked person that deserves this kind of punishment. I don't know. And it's very weird not to know. Because nowadays we're used to asking Google and getting 100 answers in a second.
That's right.
And there's no answer. There's no answer to this. But I understood that I don't understand. And and it doesn't make it easier, but that notion of realizing that there are things that are bigger than you and things that we don't understand, um, it gave me it put it in some kind of a frame of realizing that maybe the pasuk "Ki lo machshavotay machshavotechem v'lo dachiftem derechai," that Hashem's ways are not ours, and our thoughts are not his, and obviously the same way, the other way around. And understanding that I really don't understand, and realizing that I don't know what's going on. And at that point, I'm healing. I'm 2.5 weeks after I wake up, about 5 weeks um, after the accident. I moved to a rehab facility in Tel Shomer. At that point, the doctor basically tells me nothing's going to change. You're you're gonna you're gonna be paralyzed. I am paralyzed from my from the middle of my stomach and down, basically T6 for those of you who know the human body good enough. From the middle of my spine down, paraplegic. You basically have to learn how to do everything with your hands. Sitting up, getting dressed, moving around, bed, moving from the bed to the chair. Basically trying to do everything you can, but only with your hands and no legs. Basically, no stomach muscles. It's basically everything with your arms and hands. He tells me that I can be independent in the wheelchair, which at the time sounds crazy and doesn't make any sense. So you be independent when you're sitting in a wheelchair, but um, you have to start working hard, and you have to get used to a wheelchair. And to me, getting used to wheelchairs is not a problem because my disabilities is the easiest of my issues. At the end of the day, you know, there are technical solutions to pretty much every technical problem. Sitting in a wheelchair, okay, so there's a ramp, there's an elevator, there's all kinds of fancy equipment that is put together nowadays that could help, and there's more and more awareness, and there's more and more things that are accessible. So there's usually many good ways to get along and figure out what needs to be done, and that's not the problem. Problem is the children have to live a life without their mother and with a father that can't do as much as he used to. Problem is not knowing what's going to be with Itai. Will he wake up? When he wakes up, what he'll be able to do, but worse, what he won't be able to do. And of course, coping with the loss of Tzipi and Noam. The simplest example, the simplest way it comes out to play is how many are you? It's a very tricky question. We're seven, minus two. Itai comes home. He's with another guy. The caregiver, it's complicated. It's not a simple question. So
It's a
for me,
painful,
getting used
complicated
to,
question.
and it comes up play all the time. You're used to thinking in a specific number. You're used to thinking as a couple. We're three good friends, three sets of couples that we were always did things together. So you think, well, okay, when they come to visit you, you're assuming you're six. It takes time to realize that you're only five, and many different things like that. Um, so therefore, to be getting used to the wheelchair was the easiest part. But getting used to the fact that life is totally different, and life is different, and it's changed, and it's not something that we understand in a regular way. Um, I can't say that at the beginning I understood that right away. It's something that develops in time. I think first of all you're in survival mode, and then you think okay about the children, and you want to make sure that they don't suffer anymore. And slowly but surely you understand that if I'm here, then I guess there's a reason for it. If I survive this, then I guess there's something left for me to do. I have things to do. I have missions to accomplish. I have a meaningful. There's still meaning for my life to live, and I have to accomplish all these different things and fulfill the different things that I believe in or I want to accomplish. And that's how I start RIA.
Can I ask you, Ephraim, just interrupting for a moment, that realization that there is meaning in your life at this point, was that something which took a while to develop, or is that an immediate realization? Was it something that came out of desperation, or was it something that you kind of realized from as soon as you realized the horrible situation?
So I don't if I think about it, I don't recall it as a say. I realized it right away. I don't think I think the first couple of days you're just in survival mode, um, and you just think about, well, be cynical. You can't do anything. So I'm here. I'm stuck. There's nothing else for me to do. I got to do because I'm here. So I guess I should do the best I can. But then slowly realizing that if I'm here, then there's a meaning to it, and somebody obviously thinks that I'm here for a reason, and I can accomplish things, and I'm able to do things, and even though it seems at the time very complicated and maybe even not realistic to do some of those things. Obviously lots of people believed in me and encouraged me and gave me a lot of support. My family, my friends, um, people I have no idea who they are, who were davening and thinking and sending messages, and it's really it was a really heartwarming feeling realizing that so many people were invested in my story, in what happened to us, and in wanting us to get better. There was a link to say Tehillim, which is very common in Israel. They open up there's a Tehillim uh, website that you sign up, you write the name, start spreading it out. 65,000, more than 65,000 prakim of Tehillim were said through that specifically.
Wow.
I
Wow.
don't know so many. I don't know so many people.
Hmm.
Um, and I know many, 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 many Tehillim were said not through that link. In shuls and schools and on Shabbos and in the States, people were using different kind of WhatsApp groups or all kinds of different ways to do it. It's unbelievable. Yes, our story is not regular on the one hand, but on the other hand, unfortunately, we all hear lots of different sad stories. But I don't know if my friends or my family were working very hard to make sure that this is spread out, and their friends spread it out, and it really got to many different places in the world. People who I have no idea who they are could come up to me even today, and it actually happened to me today. I was somewhere with my just walking around or in my case, rolling around, and this person who I have no idea who it is stops me over and says, "Ephraim." I said, "Yeah." So I'm so and so. I'm friends with a friend of yours, and we were doubting for you. We thought of you 3 years later.
Did that give you a type of chizuk when you heard that?
Yes, it really does. It still does. Even though now thank God, I don't need daily pray davening. I mean, yes, I'm still paralyzed, and that doesn't not changing anytime soon. But you know, life moves on, and you don't think that people remember somebody else's tragedy from 3 years ago. But people remember, and people are happy to see when I'm doing well, and therefore are happy to share with me how much they were worried and thought and davened. It gives chizuk. It's surprising how much chizuk it could give you.
Wow. So what happened at that point? So how long before you were released from Tel Shomer?
I was in Tel Shomer for about 7 months until till August 2020.
Did you see
At
your
that
children
point,
during that time?
um, if I don't remember, if you recall, there was this thing called COVID
Oh,
that hit around then. So I did not see them regularly. There was a time I saw them every weekend, and then, of course, that stopped also because you had to stay in the hospital. But I almost always saw them once a week, um, which is also very difficult for them, for me. Not easy for the grandparents to raise grandchildren. It was a difficult situation all around. obviously he had to uh, do lots of work on the house, to make it accessible. And so I returned to my house with the children towards the end of August 2020. Itai, in May 2020, moved from Shaarei Tzedek to Alin, also in Yerushalayim. It's a unbelievable rehab facility focused on children. Um, it's a horrible place and it's an unbelievable place. It's a horrible place because everybody's story there is horrendous, and many children who have all kinds of different problems. So it's heartbreaking to see the things that they have to deal with. On the other hand, it's an unbelievable place because the devotion and the magic that they are able to work is really unbelievable. And that started the next phase of our life for almost another almost 2 years. Itai was hospitalized in Aline until the end of June 2022. He would come home every weekend, but he was there during the week, and intense intense rehab.
That's about 2.5 years
And
after the accident, right?
yes, and only in July does he did he was discharged, and he started uh, being an outpatient in Aline. He still goes there 3 times a week, but miraculously he I can't say he has overcome all of the obstacles, but he has a prosthesis that he is starting to walk with. Um, his voice, which was very slow, and he was his speech was very slow, and it wasn't a very loud volume, and it was speech wasn't very easy for him. It was getting better and better all the time, and it's really unbelievable miracle to see how he is today compared to where he was a year ago or 2 years ago. Definitely 3 years ago, obviously.
Wow, that's pretty tremendous that he was able to go from that state to be able to really make such progress. That's beautiful.
Yes, the doctors in Shari Tzedek um, are always very happy when he comes to visit. They uh, they uh, they are they are always in awe of his accomplishments. They're very proud of their save, but they are in awe of how he has developed and overcome many, 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 many life uh, obstacles that were thrown at him, and it's really unbelievable.
And the other three children who were not in the car, how have they dealt with, I mean, losing their mother, losing a sister, and another brother not in the home for a long, long time, a father who has been changed, and also just being with their grandparents for so long and not really having you there? How did they deal with that?
Um, I think they dealt with it the best possible. They dealt with it very differently. Each child dealt with it very differently. My daughter doesn't like to talk about it at all, about the loss, about the pain, about the agony, about missing her mother or sister. She'll mention them, she'll talk about them, she'll do things like they used to do or in their memory, but not mention the fact that she misses them. Or my son, on the other hand, can talk to anyone about it and tell him the entire story, and which is also unbelievable to think of. Um, that he's willing to share and let people in to that kind of a vulnerable kind of place. And the youngest is only now that he's in first grade, he's I think understanding a little bit more and is able to express a little bit better what is really what bothers him, what he misses, what he wants. Um, but also it's a complicated situation. And even though today they're dealing with it one way, it will hit them on many different levels throughout their life. You can't compare the way a 7-year-old deals with something, a 17-year-old deals with something, and a 50-year-old deals with something, and they will have to deal with this until Mavis, and it won't get easier. I don't think. Uh, Many times people say that time does, time makes a difference, and with time you get used to things. You get used to things, but it doesn't make it easier. You learn to live beside it or next to it or with it, but the pain doesn't really go away. The You don't stop missing someone just because you're used to missing it. You learn how to live with it or without it.
I remember a few moments ago you said, I understood that I don't understand. And you develop meaning. You said, there must be some meaning to this. I have a job to do. If I can extrapolate from what you said. Can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about what that meaning is? What is that meaning that you find in the context of not really understanding or not understanding at all? There is no answer. To take Rav Amital Zatzal's line perhaps further, not just that the answer isn't good, there isn't an answer at all. It's something that is beyond human ability. So what kind of meaning have you taken out of this?
To live a meaningful life does not mean to live a simple life or an easy life or uh, you know, uh, a life that all your wishes and dreams come true. You live a meaningful life because you have values and you have beliefs, and you do the best you can to bring them out to play and to make sure they happen properly. And everyone has what their values or things that they values, the things that they believe in, things that they want to promote or think that they are important enough to work hard for or and to dedicate their life for them to happen. And that does not change when things don't go your way. I still have my beliefs. I still have my values. I still have the things that I prioritize, things that I think that are important. And if I'm here, then I have to make sure that they happen. And meaning in life is something that we all have. All of us live a meaningful life. We live our meaningful life in our families, in our work, in our hobbies, in the things we volunteer, in our communities, to Am Yisrael. And it's meaningful to us to be meaningful. And we're willing to deal with many different obstacles and challenges in order to continue to be meaningful. And everyone is meaningful in a different way. Everyone has their own meaning. Everyone has the things that are important to them. It doesn't mean that if I'm not here, the world will collapse. But if I'm not here, then what I believe in, what I think is important, what I want to promote, probably won't be promoted the same way or not the best way that I think it can be done. And I think that that's what we need to focus on, or that's what at least I'm focusing on. The things that I feel that are important, the things that I believe in, the things that I want to make sure happen. And I focus on that. I focus on what I can do to the best of my ability. And I believe that if I'm here, then someone thinks that I have what to do, and if then it's my job to do it. And I'll do my best to make sure that I do it to the proper way. And I think many of us sometimes forget that for many different reasons. We take things for granted. We get used to things. We assume someone else can do it. And I think sometimes we get a reminder. Um, and I think Rosh Hashanah is a great reminder. Rosh Hashanah when we ask Hashem to remember us in Birkat Zichronot, Hashem didn't forget. And He doesn't need us to remind. But we have to remind ourselves that we're here on a mission and we have a job to do, and we have to make sure that our job is meaningful enough and important enough that it's worthy of Hashem's world, and that Hashem thinks that we still have enough to do that's meaningful enough to do it another year. And sometimes we have to update those things that are meaningful to us. We have to update the way we do them or the way we think we need to be doing them. But if we're here, then obviously we're here for a good reason, and we're here for to do something meaningful. So it's up to us to make sure we do that.
Have any of your values changed from before to now? I don't mean gotten weaker or stronger, but you mentioned now how there are certain values that only Ephraim can convey, for example, or only you can convey it in your particular way. That's true for every person. Are those values now the same values that you espoused beforehand, or have they changed radically, or something in between?
I don't think they changed radically. I'm sure they were updated. I'm sure they were some of them were maybe prioritized in a different way, or maybe I don't think there's something now that I do that I believe in that is different than what I believed in before, or the other way around. Um, I think proportions obviously changed, and I think realizing what's important in life has definitely gotten a boost. And I think the way I do it changed, not the values. I think I'm much more patient now. I think I'm a little bit nicer, a little bit more kind. I have more patience. I don't think I was a terrible person before, but I think I'm definitely a little bit better now. Um, but I don't think that when life changing events happen, that means you have to change your life. I think it's a reminder for you that life needs to make you may have to make sure that you're doing it properly, or sometimes um, maybe there were things I didn't do it the right way, or things I maybe I wasn't working hard enough, or I wasn't doing things that were important enough. Maybe now I have to do them a little bit better.
You obviously are a person of very admirable and encouraging and he's a giving faith. Just listening to you speak, Ephraim, I'm wondering what that faith is like. If when you daven, are you asking God why, even though you don't expect an answer, or when you daven, are you saying thank you for my life, which we say in Modim every day, and it has to be very, very difficult. But I can see you're such a life affirming and positive person despite it. What is that faith like for you, if I can ask?
Um, I think faith didn't change. In other words, the saying is that faith starts where the ending, where the knowledge ends. Okay. I didn't know your name was God, but once you told me, I believed you. Believe it. Stay it as beliefs. I don't know you, but it doesn't cost me much to believe you, so that's fine. If I really wanted to know, I would do a little bit more research and make sure. Um, I think the same thing goes with my belief in Hashem. I grew up in a religious house. I grew up in a religious environment. I grew up in a religious community, religious school, religious youth movement. Everything, knowing God or believing in God was almost nature. That's what I was. Grew up, and I knew it. That's the way it is. And life was going on as regular as possible. So ups and downs, but nothing too crazy. When this happened, um, now I had to start to believe. Up until now, I don't think I was really believing. I think we were living life the way we knew it. Now I believe. Now I believe that there is a plan. I didn't. I mean, I knew there was a plan because that's what I grew up on, but I didn't believe in it. Now I believe in it because can't imagine living a life assuming that something like this can happen just because a driver decided to drive in a crazy manner. I can't imagine living a life assuming something like this can happen because the world is random. I believe that this can happen because there's a God who, in his plan, somehow thinks that this makes sense. I don't understand. I don't understand it. I can't imagine this can make sense. But if he thinks that it makes sense, then I believe him. So when I dive in today, yes, I'm thankful for what I have, and I'm thankful for what exists. Um, and on the one hand, I'm very thankful for those miracles that happened to us. On the other hand, I don't know why I needed them. I'd be better off if everything was okay and I didn't need miracles. The first time I drove by the junction where the accident happened, it dawned to me right away. Well, I'm supposed to say Shasalines b'makom hazeh, that Hashem made me a miracle in this place. I didn't feel like I could say that. No. First of all, it wasn't a great miracle. Tzipi and Noam are not here. I'm severely injured. Itai at the time was in critical condition still. I didn't make didn't make sense to me to say anything remotely related to the world miracle. But yes, I am aware that there are miracles, and I don't know why I needed those miracles. And I would be better off without them. And continuing living the way it used to be. But when these obstacles hit us, no one asks us early, if we accept them, do we want them? Do we want these challenges? Do we accept these challenges? Did we ask for them? No, they just happen. It's up to us. We choose the way we deal with them. We can deal with them in a way that will weaken us, and we can deal with them in a way that will strengthen us. I don't think choosing the first option is easier. When we could be we can go to a negative place and a negative approach, and we could be miserable, and it'd be rightly so. No one would judge me. Why am I sad or unhappy and miserable and angry and all those things? But I don't think it would make the way I'm dealing with it any easier. I think it would make my life even more complicated. So I try to focus on the good. I try to focus on what I can do. Try to focus on um, the good and the meaningful that I can do, and not the bad things that I can't deal with. It doesn't mean that there aren't hard days or difficult times. There are. They happen, and I cry a lot more than I ever used to. Um, but I realize that I'm here, so I have what to do, and I'm going to try to do it to the best that I can.
Wow. Let's talk about what you are doing now. Can you speak a little bit, Ephraim, about your life today? Now, obviously, it's been over 3 years since everything happened in November 2019. Your life today looks drastically different from what it did then. Can you talk a little bit about what your life is like now?
Yes. 6.5 months ago, I got married to Ayelet, um, who her husband was murdered in a terror attack 5 years ago. She also has 4 children, and we are living together, raising a family of 8, which um, is a crazy lifestyle as it is, on top of the crazy lifestyles we were living before, dealing with the loss of, they were dealing with the loss of their father, and we were dealing with the loss of Tzipi and Noam. And it's an unbelievable thing to just the daily life is very different. Raising children that aren't your own um, is something that is complicated, but everyone is very happy because they realize that what was before wasn't any better. And it's it's also a challenge on its own, but it's a good challenge. It's a better situation than when we were before, and um, we, as the Disney line goes, and they lived happily ever after. So thank God we are living happily ever after. Doesn't mean there aren't any challenges, but we try our best to focus on building our family and building a good environment for the kids. Obviously, a good environment for Aylat and I. We didn't choose this chapter because we didn't like the first chapter. We obviously, but just because of that, we knew how much a good relationship, how much strength that could give, how good it is, and we wanted to build a good relationship for us too. We wanted to have that ability. So that is obviously the biggest change. Um,
I'm
I
really
uh,
glad that you found Ayala and she found you. That's nice to hear.
I absolutely. Um, I started working 3 months ago in Yeshivat Haretzion. I am the head of the alumni affair of the yeshiva. Um, so besides obviously being an alumni myself of the yeshiva, it's a great opportunity to be part of an unbelievable institution that gave me so much, and if I'm able to help in any kind of shape or form, it is a great zchut for me. And we try to live our daily life as crazy as they are. Try to, as we like to call it, live a normal life in the not normal life that we are living.
Mhm. Wow, it's such a painful story listening to everything you're telling. And at the same time, there's so much inspiration in listening to somebody handle it in such a brave and forthright manner, not pretending it isn't what it is, not trying to downplay the terrible losses that you've experienced. And at the same time saying, I'm not going to understand, and I have a choice to either be bitter and angry and no one would judge me, but I'm choosing to do something very different, which is to move forward. I'm not going to say move on, but move forward, carrying this with me, taking the experience and allowing myself to live a full life alongside everything that happened to me. I just think it's just a very, very important for me personally, and I think probably for everybody who hears you to know that. So I just want to thank you, Ephraim, for your forthrightness and for being willing to share your heart, your experience, your faith, and your goodness with everybody listening. And as a final question, if you want to give a message to people listening today, if you want to tell people just a message that they can take home, in addition to everything you've said, it doesn't require any supplements, but if there's any message you want people to hear that's important to them, what would it be right now?
I think believing in yourself, believing that you have the ability to do the best you can, to be the best that you can, um, despite all the obstacles and despite all the challenges that sometimes you feel are trying to get you off the road. In my case, almost literally. Realize that you're here and somebody believes in you, and you should do and you can do the best that you can. And we should all have success in doing it.
Okay, well, Ephraim Rimel, again, thank you so much, and wish you I wish you continued simcha with Ayelet and your new
Amen.
family, and nechama on everything that's happened, and continued ability to influence all of us for the better. So thank you.
Thank you very much.